Welcome back to Under Oath. I'm attorney Jeff Kaufman, the host with the most.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting next to me is James Kokomo Yan.
That's what I'm talking about.
Down in Kokomo.
We'll
Captain
take it.
Kokomo.
There it is.
This is your host and Captain Kokomo.
Whoa. That'd be a great name. I would trust that guy on my boat.
The last Comic-Con I do, now last time I do San Diego Comic-Con, my final one, I'm going to break into the speaker room and barricade myself in there and just make weird announcements.
Gotcha.
Deodorant is now a requirement.
Not an option.
Yes.
Because do people forget that at Comic-Con?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. You have some bathing issues. Let me explain this. You've been in the same costume for 7 days. You smell.
7 days.
7 days.
Woo.
All right. There's a question.
Legally screwed, my friend. This is actually a really
Legally
good one.
screwed.
You're going to like this one. I guarantee it. Here
Is
we
it
go.
not about tile, though, right?
It is not about tile. No.
Okay.
All right. Listen, I just bought some tile. I'm joking. All right.
Okay. No construction.
No
questions.
construction. All right. Now, I got into an accident where my car was hit from the side by a truck running a red light. I have a lot of injuries from the accident, but I can't find an attorney who will represent me because they say I won't get a settlement since I wasn't wearing my seatbelt. Am I legally screwed? It's a good one.
I never quite know who you're talking to when these people say, I spoke with an attorney and told me this.
Yeah.
It sounds like you called a big firm.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you got one of their sales guys on the phone.
Okay.
And the sales guy just arbitrarily decided he knew the law.
Okay.
Because that's ridiculous. I mean, the issue is yes, you should be wearing a seatbelt, but that only lowers your damages.
Got it.
It does. You don't get to walk away from your damages from if you hurt somebody because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt.
That sounds crazy.
I mean, if he's got $200,000 in damages and he's wasn't wearing a seatbelt, they go, okay, well, let's drop it by $10,000 or $20,000, but you're still owed a certain amount on this.
That makes sense to me.
Right. Now, here's the thing. In certain states, for example, if you're North Carolina, North Carolina has a weird comparative negligence law where you can't be more than like 1% responsible. So maybe in that state, they could give you a problem. But any state that's around 50-50, they're going to be held responsible. But yeah, they can take some off. For example, in the state of Florida, if you don't see a doctor within the first 14 days, 10,000 of that comes off.
Got it.
That's the PIP that they're not responsible. You should.
So if you don't go to the actual hospital in 10 days, then you can't. $10,000 comes off.
Now, do me a favor, and I'm going to give some advice. And please, people, listen to me. You don't have to hire me. You don't have to think about my firm. But if you get in an accident and the insurance calls you, either your insurance or the guy who hit you insurance, say, listen, I've contacted an attorney. I can't talk to you.
Okay, thank you for saying this because I want to clarify some stuff. Even if it's your insurance company.
Right. Do not
go
tell
with their
them
attorney
about your health issues.
Got you.
The first thing how are you feeling? Are you okay? You okay? We feel bad.
So
are you okay?
Mute up.
You okay? You okay?
It's like you always say, shut up.
You okay? You sure?
Gotcha.
Yeah? You okay? Well, I'm feeling a little better. Oh, that's good. Because later we're going to use this against you.
Your own insurance company.
Yes. Your own insurance company. Because remember, some of you also pay for what they call uninsured motorist as part of your insurance, which means that once the other party's insurance, if they don't have any or it's completely used up, let's say they only have 10,000 and you have 50,000 in injuries, you go after your own insurance then if you have uninsured motorists.
Gotcha.
Well, that's why your company is going to say, hey, how you feeling? You okay? You sure? You fine? Oh, we're just recording it for business purposes. Are you okay? Scumbags.
Gotcha. Dang, that's hard, man.
And it happens all the time. And people call me and you're going to hear me go, well, billboard attorneys, I don't care how somebody finds me. If I do a good job and I'm necessary to solve your problems, that's my job. I get that you don't like commercials. I get that you're sick of hearing attorneys here and there. But I can tell you nothing is worse than watching somebody get screwed over by their own insurance company. People you've paid for 20, 30 years because they do not want to take care of you, even though you forked over tens of thousands of dollars.
At the very
least. Insurance.
Yes.
And they're all nice. Hey. And I get called all the time. Yeah, you know what? We feel bad for you. Let us give you $1,500, even though we don't owe it. Can we give you $1,500? Yeah. The guy's got huge back problems.
Yes.
And let me get, you'll go to their place, but we'll give you $1,500. Okay. And because the person doesn't know the law, They agree.
Because you know why? We think my insurance company is working for
Yes.
me. That's diabolical, man.
It's just the way it is. And this happens. And the reason, we'll give you a little background. I like pulling the curtain back. When it comes to car accidents, the reason why attorneys like car accidents is because there's insurance. A lot of the ways people are injured, there's not a lot of insurance.
We talked about this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And car accidents are pretty simple. Who caused it? Now, let's say I'm in a mall and there's a wet floor and I slip. Okay, is it my fault that I didn't see the puddle? Who's responsible for the puddle? I mean, that's a case that's just a pain in the ass and it lasts a long time. Now, we do handle cases like that. But those aren't the ones where it gets done quickly and the client gets their medicals and it's over. Those are cases that last 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's why attorneys like car accidents, because they're clean. They're
There's
very simple.
There's someone's going to pay it.
It's easy to know
Yeah.
who did it.
Got it.
Okay. Now there's some cases where, he said he did it. He said she did it. It's still an easier case than trying to prove, I fell in the pool. One of the ones, for example, a guy was renting one at this Airbnb, and he goes to take a plate out of the cupboard.
Yeah.
The cupboard falls off the wall and takes him out.
Ooh.
He's laying there with the cupboard on top of him.
Yeah.
The insurance company that represented them were like, we don't know whose fault that was.
What?
He could have pulled too hard. It could have happened.
Who is he? The Hulk?
Yes.
Bruce Banner?
And they will hire an expert
Stop.
to testify that you would have to use this much force to get this off a wall. Now, remember, their experts are paid experts.
Correct.
Now, you hire an expert. Now, the joke about this, so when you're in a courtroom and you hear this stuff where this expert's testifying, I want you to know, people, those experts are paid, and they're paid very well. So imagine what I have to do to prove that my client didn't Hulk this cabinet off the wall.
Because he has an expert.
Now, whatever settlement you give the client, whatever much the jury awards him, the expert has to get paid.
No matter
so
what.
10,000 of that is going to pay the expert to explain how my client didn't Hulk the cabinet off the wall.
Gotcha.
So when you're saying, well, I'll give him 8,000, I'll give him 9,000, everything you saw in front of you costs money.
Costs money.
Everything. Oh yeah, even the information. For example, when you hear a deposition was taken, all right, we have to pay for those depots and transcribing the depots. Do you know how much that stenographer gets paid for like 2-3 hours of work?
I don't.
$1,000
For 3 hours?
Yes, and the client has to pay that out of their settlement.
So every piece you see in that whole thing that happens, someone pays that.
It's a court cost.
It comes out of the
and it
settlement.
comes out of the client's. The attorney doesn't make any money off that. The client owes it, and it comes out of the settlement.
So I could win, let's say, ballpark figure, 20 grand, but I'm
Yes.
really walking with what?
You're not walking with anything.
Wow.
If you go to trial
Yeah.
and you get awarded $20,000,
You ain't get nothing.
you're getting nothing.
You're
Getting less than nothing. You're going to
That's-
owe money.
Wow.
You're going to owe your medical costs. You're going to owe the court costs, and you're going to owe everything else. So when a jury comes back and goes, well, his medical bills were $25,000, so we'll give him $25,000.
And that's all you get.
And you can't, in the middle of it, you can't tell the jury, hey, you know that doctor that came up here?
Yeah.
That's $15,000 to $20,000.
That I still have to pay.
Yes. And, the notes where the stenographer was typing off, those things that we asked them to read back over and over again? We had 8 witnesses in this case, $4,000 to $5,000
Jesus.
to transcribe that stuff. So these cases are very expensive. That's why a lot of attorneys don't go to trial.
That's part of it. Okay,
They
makes
don't.
sense.
It's not worth it unless it's $1 million case or, I go to trial on cases that are like $30,000, $40,000, hoping that the jury will do right.
And understand and go
While
above
the other
that.
side is spending that same amount. They'd rather spend the money to fight the case than to give it to your client.
Gotcha.
They'll spend $40,000, $50,000 on an expert when originally we only asked for $25,000.
That seems crazy, but yeah.
Well, what it is they don't care.
Wow.
They don't think about the money it cost to go to trial, because if they lose, they go, oh, well, that's just a cost doing business. But if we settled it, it looks bad against my numbers.
There you go.
So everything is about investment and numbers and options and stuff like that. And they normally see trial work as necessary evils.
Gotcha.
So when it comes to stuff like this, the attorneys involved who might have told you no, that they didn't have a case in this matter, it's silly unless you only have like $2,000 of injuries.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they told you that.
Because it's not going to be
But
worth
if you
it.
had any significant injuries, your seatbelt is not going to keep an attorney from representing you.
And I learned also, and you get in an accident and your own insurance company calls you, mute up.
Any attorney.
Any attorney calls you.
Any attorney, every insurance company calls.
Mute.
So, and Craig and I are going to be arguing about some law in a second. And then you know who I got?
Billy Gardell in the house,
Gardell.
man. One of my
Mike and
favorites.
Molly.
Mike and Molly.
What's the show he did afterwards? I can never pronounce her name.
I should know this as a black person.
Yeah. They're taking your card.
they took mine a long time ago because I like mayonnaise.
Billy,
But
but Billy lost
Yeah.
stupid weight.
No, speaking of that, he is one of my inspirations because I'm on my weight loss journey. He lost an insane amount. He was a big, big guy.
I lost 25 and I still feel
Congratulations.
big.
Yeah,
I still
bro.
feel bad. I'm looking at this picture. I'm going, God, does my belly or is it the chair?
I lost
25.
almost 100 pounds and I'm
That's a
still
Backstreet
big.
Boy.
It is.
Man, when they were young, not
When
now.
they're young.
Now they're
That's
kind
at least two members of a K-pop group. Yeah.
Easy. Welcome back to Two Attorneys Arguing. Craig, one of our videos the other day hit 3.4 million views. And it was dealing with the carnival rides.
Yes. I actually saw, I saw that it hit that many, and I made the mistake of reading some of the comments. And
Yeah,
my
don't do that.
goodness,
Don't do that.
some of you people, my God.
They get mad.
The one that bugged me the most is the people who took it the wrong way, as though I was trying to tell people, hey, listen, live your life always thinking about how it will affect your lawsuit or not. That was not the advice. The advice is don't ride dangerous rides. But if you choose to ignore that advice and ride dangerous rides anyway, don't ride the ones at the carnival, ride the ones at Walt Disney or Busch Gardens, not because your lawsuit will be better, because they can actually pay the money on a big judgment, and therefore they will make sure that you don't get hurt on their rides, because it would actually cost them money and you'll end up being safer. So no, I wasn't telling you how to make the best of your lawsuit. Man, people really don't like lawyers.
They hate the billboards.
Well,
They hate the
I hate
billboards.
the billboards too.
Even ours?
Not ours.
Ours look pretty good.
Ours look great.
Yellow and black. We got your
I
back.
hate the ones that have these numbers because there's so much that number doesn't tell you about.
Yeah, there's a little unfairness about that, but I understand the point of doing that. The issue that I found out, I had gotten an argument with one of the people who left a comment. One of the people go, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about."
Oh, we absolutely know what we're talking about. I actually saw many comments from people who worked carnivals, own parts of carnivals, and anyone who had any experience with it said, yeah, he's dead on. Listen to him.
I got into it with one person because they said, well, you could sue the state or municipality. And I think when people use the word municipality, they know a little law, but just enough to give the wrong answer.
They know enough to really screw it up.
Yeah. Because I said, listen, some states and cities don't offer that type of insurance, or they say they're not responsible for it. Like in Florida, you're limited to 200, 300. I mean, that's the amount of money, you have to pay. Certain states don't have it at all. Some states have ridiculous money. But, that happens, and I feel sad. And I said, don't go on these rides. I'm just saying that if you do get hurt, there's a good chance you won't be covered. So be careful.
At a carnival.
Yes.
If you get hurt at a big place, you will be covered. And that's why you can rest assured when you go on those rides at the big places, because they have the money and the engineers
At
and
Disney,
the maintenance
Universal,
crew
Six
to make sure
Flags.
that you don't get hurt.
Now, we got a question the other day brought to us by a listener. We said, hey, you got any questions? Contact me at jeff@whenyouneedus.com.
Do people actually respond to that? Do
We
they
got
have
one.
questions?
They have questions.
Really?
So I'm going to read the question from an Elizabeth Miller. If I have a dog inside a chain link fence and someone climbs inside and is substantially harmed by my dog, am I liable? Does it make a difference if I know he bites, had a sign, or if the person was a kid, or if they died?
All right, that's a lot of different questions.
We're going to unwrap that
That's not
slowly.
the same question. Generally speaking, you are responsible for your dog attacking other people. Florida law, though, lets you, so you might not be able to avoid the lawsuit, but I don't think you'll end up getting sued because the comparative negligence of the person climbing over the fence can be considered. I think if you're sitting on a jury, think of your 12, 6 closest friends, whatever jury and state you're sitting on, they have a lot of common sense.
Yeah.
If you climb a fence to get into a yard and you get bit, that's a lot of comparative negligence. Some might say it's completely your fault.
Dog law is very different in every state. For example, when I went to law school, my research assignment was actually dealing with dog law in Florida, which I never imagined so many years later I'd be representing somebody who got bit by a dog. Now, people ask if the signs are a big deal. Yes. If you put a sign up that says bad dog, you're protected unless the person is 6 years old, below 6 years old.
Right. So you're always responsible for anything your dog does to a kid that's 6 or under. So you should anticipate that if somebody brings their little 5-year-old over, that 5-year-old is going to smack your dog in the face. You should anticipate that and put your dog up.
Now, the fence plays in too, because in Florida, the rule is it's like the 50% rule. If the person who hopped the fence, if a jury believes they're more than 50% responsible for their actions, then the other side walks. Now, here's a factor that a lot of people don't realize when they deal with dog bites. Oh, well, I'll get paid. It depends. Certain homeowners policies don't cover certain breeds of dog. For example, Rottweilers, Chow Chows, and Pit Bulls are normally not covered under a home insurance policy, and you have to get a special rider to have them covered. Now, I'm going to hear some stuff from some listeners. Well, Pit Bulls aren't bad. I'm not saying Pit Bulls are bad. I'm not saying Rottweilers are bad. I'm not saying Chow Chows are bad.
Can we say that, though? Can we say that those breeds of dogs
please
are
don't.
bad?
Please
can't
don't.
say that.
Please don't. I studied enough dog law and enough dogs to know that DNA is in. You don't remove the lion from the lion solely because you gave him Cheetos when he was growing up.
Yeah.
It just works that way. And listen, if you're an owner of a Chow, a Pit Bull, a Rottweiler, you have a higher responsibility. It just is. That dog has a propensity. It's in the DNA. It was raised that way. It was culled that way. People who know the word culling knows what I'm saying. And if you're arguing with me, if you know the word culling, then you're just trying to make yourself feel better because you have a sweet dog. I had a sweet Chow Chow. That dog never got off the floor. It just stayed there. It was a rug. It was a great dog. I went to the vet one day. Somebody came up and gave me a hassle, and this dog's face peeled back. I didn't know the dog had teeth. It just naturally reacted, and I was holding the dog firmly. There was no reason for me to believe that Jasmine, the sweet black Chow Chow, would have lit this dude up, but she was going to.
Yeah.
And I was grateful she was going to because it was my life on the line. But I had kind of ignored the breed concept and what it was. And, I knew enough about dogs to know certain things are bred in. Retrievers like to retrieve stuff. How many dogs do you see that always carry stuff in their mouth? And they were raised that way. They're retrievers. They want to carry stuff in their mouth. They were born that way, just natural. So just realize that if you have one of these dogs, you might have to contact your homeowner's insurance policy and make sure that they're covered. If not, you're going to have to pay money on top of your regular home insurance. We actually had a case, remember, where this dude owned a cat and it hopped into the neighbor's backyard and the dog basically ate the cat. And the guy was devastated.
The guy? Who's the guy?
The guy who owned the cat. Yeah.
Well, he needs to keep his cat on a leash.
Let's call it Mittens.
He needs to keep his cat on a leash.
I don't want to be that guy.
You can't just let your cat free to roam the world. And
have you seen that out in the wild?
The cat is trespassing.
I think cats like to be out.
I don't think the cat likes being in the backpack.
I don't know. I have never talked to the cat. I never know.
I think you can tell by their body language that they don't like me.
I mean,
have you ever tried to put a cat in a bag?
The cat has like a note on it, like 911
Have you ever
or
tried
something.
to put a cat in a bag?
I have never even thought of that. And I think you should not admit to ever trying to stick a cat in a bag either.
I had to put a cat in a bag one time. I had to take my friend's cat to the vet. Oh. And I only had a motorcycle. You're
on the back? You're that guy?
So I go to pick up the cat and I put the cat in my backpack, right? And I'm doing it the right way. So
how is there a right way to stick a cat in a backpack?
The backpack is on the gas tank, and I have it zipped up, except for I got its head out of the backpack, so it can look around and see what's going on. I don't want it to get scared. So I start driving to the vet, like I told my friend I would do. No, it was a rice burner. It was yeah. So I'm going, and I get to the end of the apartment complex, and the cat's freaking out.
Of course.
It busts out of the backpack because I don't have it zipped all the way up, and it jumps on the handlebars while I'm driving. And so I almost crashed the motorcycle trying to get this cat to the vet. So I'm going to put the cat into the backpack, and then I zipped it all the way up. The vet was only like a mile away.
This sounds like, and the cat was dead when I got
So
there.
it was only a mile away. So Rob, I'm sorry I did this to your cat, but it's content now. Anyway, I zip it up, and it immediately stiffens. I can tell it doesn't like it, but I mean, we're right there. I mean, I could see
For the welfare of the cat, it had to go through this.
Yes, I could see where I was going. So I put the cat in the backpack, and the whole time it's trying to get out. I get to the vet, and I stop, and I take the cat out of the backpack, and the other people going into the veterinarian office, they reported me to the vet. So I had to hear from my friend, hey, what? I got my cat back when I got back from vacation. The vet said that whoever dropped it off.
He told on you?
Yes.
He told on
the
you?
Vet
and
told
the vet
on
told.
me. Yes.
What happened to, patient client? I guess you weren't the client. The cat was the client.
Well, I transported the cat.
Yeah. I would have lied. I don't know what they're talking about.
I don't know.
See, I think you can't lie about that. I think you can with a straight face.
I can?
Yes, you can.
I didn't do that. The cat stayed. I had the head out the whole time.
What are you talking about? That cat rode my jacket the whole way.
I was holding
That
him.
cat was my ride or die.
I was holding him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up Elizabeth Miller's question.
All right. So, Ms. Miller, you're always responsible for the actions of your dog, no matter where it is and what's going on. As one of your defenses, somebody else's actions, if they're negligent, can be taken into account. Climbing over the fence, absolute problem for somebody trying to sue you for getting bit by your dog. But if you're walking your dog, there's no requirement that, oh, he's been bad in the past, and that's why I shouldn't be held responsible for him breaking off my leash and biting somebody. You're still responsible in that situation. You have to control your animal at all times. The only time you don't have to do that is if it's on your property and you have a bad dog sign. And then you're okay unless the person who gets bit is 6 or under.
Well,
hence
that'll
my
do it.
advice why you should, if somebody's bringing their kids over, no matter how gentle and nice your dog has ever been, just protect yourself. Put the dog in the bedroom until the little kid leaves.
Hope that works for you, Elizabeth. Next under oath, we have actor, producer, stand-up comedian, and game show host, Billy Gardell.
Hey, man, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm doing good. What I love about you and I, we started our careers in the same place.
Yes, we did.
Bonkers. Yeah.
Bonkers Comedy Club. My first one was the original location on, it was down by, I don't think it was, it was John Young Parkway, I think. It was connected to a nightclub called Park Avenue.
Oof.
And Bonkers was this little 120-seat room right next door. And my first time on stage was December 28th, 1987.
Jeez. You think about that first time on stage where everyone says, hey, you're funny. You should try this.
Well, I always knew what I wanted to do. I knew from the time I was 9, I wanted to be a stand-up comic. And when I was 17, I went down there to get on an open mic night. And they let me up because I was a bigger kid, so I looked like I was 21. But I found out later they knew. And about the third time I did it, I just came to them honestly and I said, look, I'm underage, but I really want to do this. How can we make this work so I can be on stage? And Joe and John and George, they said, first of all, we knew you were under 21, but we wanted to see if you'd lie to us or not. So you passed that test. And then they gave me a job. They gave me a job cleaning the club and then driving the comics to the airport and eventually answering the phones and seating people. And that way I could just be around it every day. And eventually that led to more stage time. And that got me my start.
It's very interesting. I do a lot of that also because I get to interview the comedians before they play, whether it be a Bonkers, an Improv, a Funny Bone. Being able to interview somebody, then see their set, then talk to them afterwards. The education you must have gotten in those early days must have been just brutal.
It was really wonderful to be where I was at that time because it was the late 80s and it was really the height of stand-up comedy, not like it is now. Now it's like the internet has made it unbelievable. Guys are playing arenas. But back then it was kind of like jazz. It was like so popular, like people would just go to the comedy club just to go to the comedy club. It wasn't, didn't necessarily need a name. But the guys that I got to watch and be around. I got to see Bill Hicks in a comedy club setting. I got to see Kinnison. I got to see Dice. I got to see, guys that are killers that didn't quite become household names that are just absolutely brilliant, like Kenny Rogerson and Ben Creed. But all these guys were like masters at their craft. And I think just being around that was an incredible education.
When I see stand-up comedians move to the next media, TV, movies, everything like that, and I know the kind of treatment they got on the road doing stand-up, and then suddenly you're on set and people are, you have, a food table, you have people doing things for you, you have assistants and all this other crazy stuff. I can't imagine how you don't hold yourself and go, hey, it could go any day. I mean, I got to appreciate what I have.
I think you just said it. That's how you keep from being one of those obnoxious people. You remember your gratitude before you go into work, and you remember that if you're the lead of the show, which I've been fortunate enough to be twice, that it's not just about me. There's 150 crew members in there that are depending on a paycheck every week too. So how you act and how you comport yourself on your stage, especially if you're the lead, that's what spreads throughout your set. So if you come in and you act like a gentleman, then that's going to spread. If you come in and act like an arrogant turd, then everybody's going to be awful. So I think there's a bit of responsibility that comes with that. And I think the more collaborative and the more open and giving and encouraging you are, I think that it bubbles up for your show. It makes your show great. I actually got that advice from Jimmy Burrows, legendary director of Cheers, Friends, Taxi, and we were lucky enough to have him the first 2 years of Mike and Molly. And he came into my dressing room before we started the pilot, and he said, I'm going to tell you something. Remember this, kid. The fish thinks with the head. So how you go, they go. So it's your job to come in here and be a gentleman and a good person. He goes, that'll spread and make longevity happen. And he said, or you can come in and be a dick. He goes, I hope you make the right choice. And I think I did. So.
It's amazing to me is how connected things are. About 5 years at Comic-Con, I don't want to say young man came up to me named Nyambi.
I love him, man.
And he comes into my booth and, walking around Comic-Con, you're going to get harassed a lot. And I said, just lean into the booth. Nobody will see you. Right. And we were talking, and Mike and Molly was still on at the time. And he was talking about it. I said, well, what are you planning to do? What's the future look like? And he was like, well, no, I'm on the show. I said, I know that, but shows end very quickly. You don't listen to your managers or agents. Be prepared for that future. And he goes, well, like what? I said, well, are you writing anything? Are you doing anything? And within that hour I spent with him, I saw him again at New York Comic-Con three months later. And he said, I'm working on this. I've got a comic book. I've got all this. And since then, he's been on Atlanta. He's published books. He's done all these things. And how many actors don't do that? How many actors don't think, okay, I got to be prepared if they don't renew the show at the end of the season?
Well, I think you're looking at one, number one. I was never a plan down the road guy. I've gotten a little better in my old age about that stuff. But I always felt like since I had stand-up, I always had something to fall back on. And then that allowed me the freedom after the shows to start looking for the things I'm looking for now, which is trying to find a little more dramatic roles and see if I can maybe go in that direction. And then I'm always open to, another comedy if it's the right comedy. I've been pretty spoiled. I've been with Chuck Lorre twice. So the next comedy has to be good because I don't want to go backwards. But I'm also very interested in the dramatic side of things. But I could have planned better. What I've learned is I'm terrible at the internet. Like I'm from the old school. The Tonight Show and, doing stuff like that, and then, promote your show and then get home and do your show. And now it really has become such a social media driven business, especially stand up, that it's presented a new challenge for me, which I do like. And I'm back out doing stand up. I hadn't done it like 3 years. I thought I was done with it. And then the bug bit me. And then I realized when I got out there, wow, if you don't have an internet presence on Instagram or Facebook, or it doesn't matter that you were on TV. So it's kind of like starting a band over, and I'm starting to gain some momentum, and I'm really enjoying the process of that. I think you just got to keep doing something creative. I think that's the key.
You've been able to do movies. You've been, a couple, and you've been a producer, which
I've had a couple. I had a couple small roles in movies. I had one good role in a movie called Avenging Angela with Sylvester Stallone, and it was Anthony Quinn's last film. And the movie was so bad, I'm surprised. I think it opened and closed on the same flight. But I got to do it, and so I haven't had a big movie presence yet. But I'm working on that. I'm trying to build that.
I don't know about that. I mean, I know Scorsese was after you after he saw Dancer and the Dame, so I don't know if.
Well, sometimes you got to do a movie. You got to remember, at that time I had a 9-year-old. So it's the other side projects I was trying to do were kind of kids movies and kids cartoons so that I could impress him. He wasn't very impressed with sitcoms. But when I got on Scooby-Doo and Phineas and Ferb and did stuff like that, well, then I had a little street cred with him, so that's why I did that stuff.
Is it weird? Because my daughter, I can tell her what I do, everything else, and she wants to be an actress and everything else. She is absolutely unimpressed with anything I do.
I think that's good.
It's so unbelievable to me. So, but for you, it was like, hey, I was on Scooby-Doo.
I think it's very good. I think it's important that they know that you're dad first, and that's just your job. And that's what I told him. When I did get Scooby-Doo, because that was his all-time favorite cartoon, I actually got to play a bad guy as the warden in one of the ghost prisons. And I actually got to say the line, "If it wasn't for you meddling kids." And so I took him with me to that recording, and man, he just went bonkers over that. So that was a great gift. And you get to do those little perks when you've had a little success. So that was really nice.
Now, you have an indie film coming out called The Vortex. It comes out, I believe it comes out on the 21st through the 27th. It's screening?
Yeah. It'll be in Orlando. It's a small run of art house theaters, about 5 cities, Los Angeles, Pittsburgh, Orlando, and then next month, Chicago and Indianapolis. And we wanted to pick markets where, that I'd kind of grown up in and that I had a presence in. And Orlando, of course, was where my career started. So absolutely wanted to do it there. And they actually have it playing in a place that I used to go to all the time, the Aloma Draft House, the Aloma Cinema and Grill. And it's in Winter Park, where I went to high school, which I find really, really cool. And it's a cool little indie film, and it gave me a chance to do something dramatic and try to show that side of me. Look, it's not The Godfather, but I think we did a really nice job with it. And, sometimes you have to take these, independent films to kind of show the industry, oh, look, he can do that too. And I think I may have done that with this film, at least as a showcase. And it had a lovely cast, and they were just a delight to work with. I got to work with some young actors that were really, really good and connected. And I liked the story. It was directed by a buddy of mine named Richard Zelnicker, and he brought me the script and he said, what do you think about this? And, sometimes you got to take a little chance on yourself and do something just for the sake of art. And I'm really glad I did, because I think it came out good. And like I said, February 21 through the 27th, Aloma Cinema Grill, calling all my Wildcats, my Winter Park Wildcats and my Union Park Econs. Show up and go see that movie. I think you guys will enjoy it.
Isn't it it's about a stand-up comedian in the 80s who also spends a lot of time on playing the slots?
Well, the cool thing about it was he's a stand-up in the 1980s. He's the house comic at a casino, but that is like this much of the story. The truth of the story is that he has a gambling addiction, and that there's a Paiute cleaning woman who kind of gives him some advice. And there was a mysterious fire at the MGM Grand in 1980. Nobody to this day knows how it started. And we kind of did, this may have been one of the spiritual reasons this happened. And in the meantime, I'm kind of playing, when we have an addiction, you kind of do whatever you can to not face your addiction. And the way my character Pete handles that is he's kind of like the 10-cent psychiatrist for all the nuts in the casino. And like I said, I think we created this cool little world, and I'm excited for people to see it. I hope they like it.
You know what's interesting about stand-up comedians? There are a lot of stand-up comedians who are like, I'm going to talk, they're serious gamblers. I mean, the addiction is ridiculous. I mean, and they don't hold back either. Louis Anderson, Dice Clay, they always held it. They were never embarrassed by it. I mean, but they could do $250,000 a night gambling.
Well, I don't know those stories. I just know my own story. And I just think, I think we all have some broken stuff inside of us. And I think the journey through life is to slowly kill them in the order that they're killing you. And so, it's about peeling those layers back. I quit drinking and I quit smoking and I quit eating. And I said to my wife the other day, I go, my next special is just going to be called Quitter. That's all I've been doing my whole life is quitting. But the more bad things I quit, the better my life gets. And so that kind of spoke to me about this film too. The road is a hard place, man. You're lonely, you're isolated. Any of those addictions can flare up, whether it's drinking and drugging or eating bad or gambling. Like you said, you just have to watch and be honest with yourself about what it is that you're doing. Because if you let any of that stuff get out of hand, it can drown you. And I've been lucky enough to survive all that. And so I could kind of bring some of that to this role, which was good.
What I love about, some people's lives is when they get to move forward and they get to do cooler things and they get to make choices about their careers. Now, with all the success that has come your way, what do you think the coolest thing? I mean, did you get to meet somebody? Did you get to work with somebody that you're going, wow, I never thought that would happen?
I've had many moments like that I can't believe happened to me. Like, I got to have dinner with Bruce Springsteen and his wife one night. And that was like an all-time, like that was just surreal to sit across from the boss. Again, our director, Jimmy Burrows, took a liking to me and he invited us up to his house one night. And there was Bruce Springsteen and Patty, and we got to hang out with them. And my wife's name is Patty. And so it was just crazy. I've been fortunate to be around very successful people, and I've worked with people that I've enjoyed working with. Chuck Lorre changed my life. I mean, the guy believed in me for this sitcom, and he like that guy has a third eye. Like when he sees it, it's just going to happen, even when you're not sure it's going to happen. And he said, "Look, when you get Mike and Molly, he goes, I think you're the guy for this. I'm going to surround you with a great cast. You're not going to have to carry the water up the hill by yourself, and we're going to do a little play every week." And then, out of the blue, 2 years after that was over, he called me again. He goes, "I've got an idea for a guy who's a compression sock salesman who falls in love with his Nigerian nurse after a heart attack." I was like, "Whatever, I'm in, Chuck. Whatever you want to do." And he's blessed me twice, and I got to work with him. I got to work with Jimmy Burrows, and I've met some actors that I just really love and got to hang out with and learn from. Two of the actors I really just learned so much from on Mike and Molly was Rondi Reed, who played my mother. She's from Steppenwolf in Chicago, and Lou Mastillo, who played Vince, was a Broadway actor, and they really helped me. And then one of my dearest friends, Reno Wilson, who played my partner. Like Reno is always a source of inspiration, man. He just you want to be a better person around him. So all that stuff came to me. So I've had these surreal moments, and I just always kept in mind, though, that it was ending. And to stay grateful and to bring gratitude to work. And then I'm lucky enough to have a wife and kid that mean the world to me. So I always had something more important than show business. I don't have to define myself by show business because I knew as long as I did my job, I get to go home to my little family and have a nice house and have a nice life. And, that's the thing I dreamed of my whole life.
Now, as an attorney, I try to give people knowledge, try to avoid certain pitfalls and everything else like that. But sometimes you can't learn those things unless you experience them. They won't listen. Failure is a great thing because it's a fantastic teacher. Now, as you've been able to move through all these different, avenues, what do you think the most important lesson you learned when dealing with success?
I think you have to remember who you are before success is going to be amplified. So if you're selfish and arrogant, that's going to be amplified. And if you are grateful and kind, that is going to be amplified. And that's the goal. Nobody's perfect. I always say there was only one man who walked the earth that's perfect, and that was Ryan Reynolds. The rest of us, we're just, we're doing our best. We're doing our best.
Yeah, that's a nice setup. What's funny is I'm actually doing a guest spot on one of your shows that's coming up in March.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, man.
And I always
very highly of you.
Yeah, thank you. The people always ask me, is there a big difference between being, a guest spot or a headliner? And I tell them, I said, yeah, it's the responsibility. If you do a guest spot, hey, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If I'm the feature, hey, I don't have to carry this. But the guy who's got to do the heavy lifting, he's coming up after you.
Yeah.
And-
Anybody who's dealing with the check spot, they got to carry the load. That's the deal. But that's part of what we do. That's part of the excitement of it, And I used to love guest spots, man, because you could just come in, tear it up for 10 or 15 minutes, and then back home, you're good to go. But yeah, when you're closing, you have a responsibility to make sure that people got the money worth that they paid to come see you. And that's what we're going to try to do.
Now, I was just talking with a fellow comedian who's working on a cruise ship right now. It's my good friend, James Jean.
Okay.
And you used to work with him in Bonkers a long time ago. And
My God.
James is kind of, he's like 5'8" in diameter, but he said, make sure he brings him up. I said, he'll probably remember me. I'm saying, good luck with that.
No, he's a sweetheart. James is a sweetheart, man. And this thing we do, it's crazy. Like my son wants to be in this business. He wants to direct and he wants to edit, and that's he likes the other side of the camera a little better. But I told him, I go, you got to be willing to do this for a lot of money, and you got to be willing to do this for a cheeseburger. Like if it's in you, you're going to just do it. But you have to keep adapting, because I hear a lot of people, especially younger performers, say, well, it's this and AI. Well, yeah, it is. But as the ground shifts, so do we if you want to be an artist. You just have to keep finding a way to adapt to whatever's coming next. And so, I'm hoping he's doing that. I root him on, and we get to share film and music stuff together and talk about those things. And I'm rooting for him to be a director because I'm unemployed right now. I need a job. So I want him to get out there and get going.
Now, I have a daughter in a similar position. She's in school. She wants to be an actress. She earned her way. She got a full scholarship. I can't tell her no because she's earned her way through.
There you go.
A lot of times you don't want your kid to have to suffer the way you did, but it's important that they suffer. So how do you balance that? Hey, I'm going to help him, or maybe I need to let him do this on his own.
I don't think suffer is the right word for me. I don't want him to suffer, but I believe in hardships. I believe you have to find your way, and I don't think everything should be handed to you. In today's world, unless you're a superstar, you can't really, even at that level, you can't make somebody's career. Now, what I can do is I have a buddy of mine who's, I think, one of the best editors in television. His name's Steve Prime. I can get him an internship where he works with Steve and learns, and he works for free. What he does from there is up to him. And then maybe I can get him a PA job, which is the very bottom level at the studio. But I told him, I go, you need to go in there, become a PA, and you need to work in the prop department, the electric department, the makeup department, the script department, lighting department. Watch the directors, watch the actors. Like, if you really want to direct, the respect you can give your crew is by learning every position in the kitchen before you attempt it. So, like I said, I might be able to get him a job as a PA, but after, it's like letting your buddies in the movie theater through the fire exit. Like after that, you're on your own, man. I can't make your career for you. You have to find that in you. And I told him, we were talking about, like you said, with your daughter, like adversity's good. I always tell them, you don't learn anything when everything goes right. You learn when you fail. And if you're willing to get up and try again, you're going to pick up what you can do better next time. But you can't just fail and go, well, I tried once and that's all over. I told them the only way you get war stories is you got to go through the war. But it's in failing, I believe, we learn to succeed. I couldn't agree with you more.
Now, being somebody who's been on the road, when people say, oh, you got so lucky, and people don't understand how many times, how many miserable situations, how many crappy hotels you lived in. When people say to you, oh, you're so lucky, what's your answer to that?
Well, I think I agree with it in this way. The actual break that sends you over the top, I think there is some luck involved there, because everything has to go right. It has to be the right moment, the right script, the right time, the right production company, the right network. Like it literally it's a shot in the dark. The journey there, like it took me 25 years to get Mike and Molly. So, but the journey there, I believe the harder you work on your craft, that when an opportunity does present itself, I believe if you've worked on your craft for a long time, it will elongate that window. You won't be one of those flash in the pan people. But getting the actual break, I think there's a little luck involved. And what I tell young comics is the only thing I did right was I didn't quit. And I wanted to many times, but I just kept going one more week, one more week, one more week. And I think you have to bank on that and really be willing to commit to that. I mean, that's a real leap of faith to think you're going to be successful in this business, but you have to have that inside yourself if you're going to have any chance to survive. So I think there's a little bit of luck involved when the actual break happens. How long you stay relevant, I think, has to do with how hard you work before that break happens.
One of the last questions I want to ask is because it's always interesting to me, because a lot of people, they know their law of television. They've learned everything they need. What do you think the toughest legal lesson you had to learn when you got into this business?
The toughest legal lesson?
Yes, that you go, wow, I didn't know that. I need that in my contract. I had no clue.
I think that happened actually recently to me, because there's been such a shift with AI. You used to sign a contract when you start in a show that they can use your likeness and your image. It was just standard. And what that meant was they could put you on a billboard or put you on a bus or put you, use your clips in a commercial to advertise the show. Well, now AI has floated into that conversation, and now it means something completely different. Now it means they can scan your image, and nowadays with today's technology, they can take a bank of all your audio recordings and literally make new dialogue come out of a scanned image of you. They could literally, they're almost to the point where they could produce a show from a show you did years ago, and you don't even have to be there. So one of the legal battles out here for SAG is to try to go, whoa. How do we divide that? How do we get on top of that? I don't think we did the greatest job in this last strike to protect actors, because especially actors that don't work a lot, if they're there one day and you scan them and now they can get 4 days of work out of a scan instead of giving the actor 4 days of work and just giving the actor 1 day of work. Well, that hurts their insurance, that hurts their retirement, that hurts their chances. So I'm hoping that the next negotiations will be smarter about that, because just saying we can use your image means a whole different thing in AI language. Now, when you've done more, you can argue more like you can't scan me, or you can use 10% AI, but when you're an actor that's just a journeyman and trying to get a gig, you don't have any say in that. And I think that's really unfair and greedy. So I'm hoping that the legals in SAG will be able to defend that for us a little bit better in the next contract negotiation.
Well, thank you very much for that advice, Billy. I really appreciate that. Can't wait to see your movie when you come in. I'll be one of the first people in line. Got to see that. And I can't wait to work with you.
We're going to be there. What are we fed March 28th and 29th, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll be there.
March 28th and 29th at Bonkers, which is just, it's so wonderful. I mean, I literally started there, and I've been working on my new hour of material, and that's the reason I'm coming home, to get that on me. And I'm going to see a bunch of old friends and stuff, and to be in that room on that little stage on the corner and working for Joe, John, and George again, especially John and George, man. Those guys, especially George, I literally was his right-hand man for the first 4 years of my career, doing everything with him. And those guys, they taught me a really get it done, no excuse work ethic. And I'm so grateful to be down there and to get to go on my old stomping grounds, man. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And that stage you work on it's an amazing stage, because it's just, you don't get a lot of space. So it's just you and that whole room. There's not walking around. There's not doing too much.
5 by 5, brother. 5 by 5.
There you go. Well, thanks again. I look forward to meeting you.
I look forward to working with you, man. And thanks for your time today. I appreciate it.
Well, that wraps up today's show. I'm attorney Jeff Kaufman. Thanks for joining us. Special thanks to my two co-hosts, my good friend, professional comedian James John, and my law partner, Craig Lind. This show is sponsored by Kaufman Lind. If you or someone you know has been in an accident, contact us at 407-500-JEFF or 407-500-5333 for a free consultation, or visit us at whenyouneedus.com.